down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 137. Today's very special guest is Bob Bert. Bob Bert is an amazing, legendary musician. For those of you who don't know him, I mean, there are so many things that he's been a part of that maybe you do know about. I mean, most notably, he was the drummer for Sonic Youth for a brief period in their early career. He recorded on the Bad Moon Rising album, as well as a couple of other songs, not any other full releases, I should say. And then he kind of, when he's parted ways with them, he ended up parlaying his way into Pussy Galore, which is another long career with them and pretty extensive recording and touring history with them, and crazy output with that band. And then just kind of kept on working at it, kept on working at music and working with newer projects. He ended up becoming part of the Chrome Cranks, Knoxville Girls, Wolf Manhattan Project, Lydia Lunch's Retrovirus, and now at this point in his career, he's kind of like, settling down a little bit. A lot of life issues are also involved in that decision-making process, but also, he's had a long life on the road. So he's putting out a solo record, which is very unique because, Bob Bert's a drummer. So the record has no guitars on it. So, I don't know exactly how to describe what he's doing at the moment, but he's using a kind of an elaborate percussion kit, and he's got a lot of special guests on the record as well. And he's oddly enough, and I talked to him about this a little bit, but has a lot of covers on this record. And, they're interesting choices because I feel like they're pretty guitar heavy, or like songs that are kind of, known or most associated with maybe a guitar in it. So it's a very interesting interpretations that he does there. And he's got a new video coming out for his cover song of Love Comes in Spurts by Richard Hell and the Voidoids. So that will be out shortly. And if it is out by the time this comes out, then I will link it. And if not, look for it. It'll be out very soon. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Richard Hell actually makes an appearance in the video, so definitely worth checking out. So I don't want to make this intro too long, so I'm going to get right to all the other stuff. I'd like to say thank you for tuning in, first of all, and, all that we ask that you do here for Vinyl and Vision is that you like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all of those things. Very easy way to help us out and kind of get our numbers up so that we can continue making these shows for you. And if you want to help us out in a monetary way, we actually Psychic Static actually functions as a record label as well. And we have a lot of records out right now. This has been a big year for us. This is the most we've ever released in 1 year. We have the record by There, which is a Providence supergroup, noise rock, psych rock band, which is amazing. Vinyl records of theirs are available currently. Mr. Wonderful just released this really interesting tape. I'll just say that, and have you go look for it and look at it. It's a pretty great release. They're a wonderful band, kind of like post rock, punk rock, little noise rocky. Muffin is a female-based Riot Girl-esque punk band that just formed. We just put out their debut EP, which is amazing. It sounds great, and there is some pink vinyl for that. It looks wonderful. Who else do we have? Of course, the Hammer Party, who are actually going to be going to Caterwaul Fest this year. For the first time in Minneapolis, and we're very excited to have them be invited to the show to perform. It's going to be awesome, but we have their entire discography, every single record and EP that they've put out, we've released for them, and it is available. So please go find those things. www.psychicstatic.com is the new website where you can find links to all of those bands and bios on them, and links to the Bandcamp page, which is where you can buy any of that stuff for the time being. So thank you very much, folks. Enjoy.
Where are you located?
Not far from you. I'm in Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're in Hoboken, New Jersey, correct?
Yes, yes.
Cool, man. Well, it's nice to have you. I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So Bob Bert, let's just jump right in because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Okay.
And I think we have a lot to talk about because I kind of have a lot of notes here.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's start at the beginning. I mean, like, you want to give me a brief rundown of like when you were born and where you were raised?
I was born in June of 1955, and I grew up in a town called Clifton, New Jersey. You ever see the movie King of Comedy?
I actually have not. I've been
Okay.
meaning to.
Well, anyway, yeah, I grew up in Clifton, New Jersey, which is like 10 miles out of New York City. And, from an early age, even as a youngster, my parents took me into the city, and then as a teenager, I would be, hitchhiking in there and stuff. And yeah, so I've been in the New York area my whole life.
Yeah. Okay. And so like what do you remember about like your earliest memories of music in the house?
Music in the house. Well, I was the youngest of four kids, and my parents, had me when they were in their 30s at least. And music in the house was, well, in the main like living room, there was a stereo, and it was just kind of like, the West Side Story soundtrack and records like that. But my older brothers and sisters, my sisters, like in the 60s, like most of the albums were like, compilations of the singles. So it's just like in my sister's room, they had like the Temptations' greatest hits, the Four Tops' greatest hits, the
Hmm.
Shangri-La's greatest hits, which was a fave. Um, and they had like a lot of Donovan and Simon and Garfunkel. And my brother, who was even older, I shared a bedroom with him. And, when I got into albums really early because my father owned a liquor store and there was a record store right next door. So I was always, buying records, and then, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan when I was 8 and then, got into the whole British invasion, things
Right.
like that,
Yeah. I mean,
transistor radio under the pillow thing.
right, right. I mean, I've heard about the whole Ed Sullivan thing and the Beatles being on there and that having been such a massive influence for a lot of the people that I've spoken with. I mean, do you feel like that's kind of why you initially wanted to get into drums?
Yeah, because I don't know, I was attracted to the drums and I was one of those people that was always tapping on stuff and a friend on the next block, his brother had a drum set and we used to look at drum catalogs all the time and I took drum lessons for a year when I was 12 and uh and I used to have like, friends over and we used to play in the basement, songs like Dirty Water by the Standells and trying
Sure.
to figure out Cream or whatever,
Right.
But when I moved out of my house at 18, I had I didn't play at all. I had no thought of all of it ever being a musician. I was more into fine art. I really looked up to Andy Warhol and that whole scene.
Right.
And when I was in high school, that's when I was kind of converting from, hippie into more glam, I guess, because that's like Ziggy Stardust came out when I was in high school and Lou Reed's Transformer and got into Roxy Music and, started, reading William Burroughs and things like that. Started
Oh,
getting into
okay.
the counterculture.
Yeah, right. So that's a huge thing. So around what year was that you were getting into high school?
I graduated high school in 73.
Oh, okay. So that's when this album came out.
Which album?
The
New
the
York
Dolls, the New
Dolls.
York Dolls. Yeah,
Yeah, I was wondering. I thought I'd say that discussing the New York Dolls.
that's right.
Yeah, so the New York Dolls album came out, and as soon as I saw the cover, I had to have it, and and I took it home and liked it, and I went to see them that same year, right after the album came out at Max's Kansas City,
Right.
and then I saw them a whole bunch of times after that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that because I definitely want to hear about those times of yours. But so I mean, growing up in the house, I mean, it seems like music was pretty readily available, and you were automatically interested. You think?
Yeah, somewhat. And I was my father was a famous athlete, a football player, and
Right.
so I was always, the kid up in my room with headphones on, and there's this famous story that I've told a few times where um, for my 14th birthday, which was like in 1969, I was in a department store with my parents, and they said for your birthday you could pick out any album that you want, and I picked up the Fugs Tenderness Junction album, and then like 3 or 4 days later, I came home from school, and it was like totally ripped apart and smashed up on my bed because
Whoa.
I guess my one of my sisters heard the lyrics while I was playing it and ratted me out to my mother.
Oh man, that sucks.
Well,
Well, that was the time too. I mean, like all that weird kind of like underground music, and especially stuff that was lewd or had questionable like content in it.
Yeah,
Was
and
yeah, it
and
was
I was
definitely
always attracted to the that kind of stuff, and because it's like you go into the record store and you'd see like the Beatles and the Stones,
right.
and but I was also like see like freak out by those Mothers of Invention or the Fugs, and I was really into the Byrds back then, and
Hmm.
I was always kind of attracted more to the counterculture.
Yeah.
I love I love the Jefferson Airplane. I still do. That the Volunteers album I was really into, and I think that was like junior high school.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. So, what do you think was so alluring to you? I mean, like you mentioned how your dad was a famous athlete. He was a Heisman Trophy award winner, and I mean, like, did you like kind of deliberately or like push back against the
I,
whole
I
jock
think I
thing,
think
or
because I was the youngest of in the family that, you know, yeah, no, it was never pushed on me to be an athlete or anything like that. My father was really cool,
yeah,
and uh and it was just the time, he was like looking at magazines, and I was always a trip because I started out going to Catholic school and I really hated it, and I begged my parents to take me out of it. And finally, in eighth grade, I rebelled enough until they did, and so I was always attracted to you know hippies and stuff like that,
and
and like I
weirdos?
said, I turned 14 in 1969, and that's when I started taking acid and smoking pot and
Oh, when you were
was
14?
yeah, listening to
Wow.
all that crazy music. And we like back then the drinking age in New York City was or everywhere was 18. And we used to go into the city and they would just serve anyone. Not like we were out there getting really drunk or anything, but
Sure.
it was just a whole different world back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that's interesting. I know that I've heard a lot of interviews with you. I've in doing some of this research, and I know that you kind of like started going out to shows pretty early, and um, I guess maybe we should discuss how did you make that transition from like Hoboken, New Jersey, into like getting into the city and finding the clubs that you were most interested in seeing, and that would
You mean
ultimately
Clifton, New Jersey?
Clifton. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I live in Hoboken now.
Right.
Um, well, right next door, next to Clifton, there was a town called Passaic. Passaic had three old porno theaters, and they started having concerts there. And in one theater, I saw with all my high school friends, we saw Pink Floyd do the Ummagumma tour, and we were all like, on mescaline, passing a wine bottle around. And then I saw the Alice Cooper Love It to Death tour at the other theater, and then the Capitol Theater opened up, And my very first date at the age of 16 was opening night of the Capitol Theater, and it was the Jay Giles Band, and Humble Pie, and
Nice.
Frampton's Camel, and um, and so I was, we were going to concerts, and then eventually started going to clubs in New York. Me and my friends were really into well, not just the New York Dolls, but also Wayne County and the Backstreet Boys, who put on this great, outrageous show,
Right.
and so I started going out to places, and we were just, it was such a great time to explore things, and there was so much going on. It'd be like, really good jazz and lofts, and go see William Burroughs read somewhere, or and uh and then in 1975 I went to CBGB's for the first time, and that was like a weeknight with Patti Smith and television. There was like hardly anyone there, and I
Yeah.
just got attracted to that world, and I started going there like 4 times a week and seeing, the beginning shows of all those bands.
Right, right. And that was 75. You saw Patti Smith and television. So that's already 2 years after the Dolls.
Yeah, yeah. The Dolls
Wow.
were still around, but they weren't, I think, they were kind of puttering out, Jerry and Johnny were already gone. And
Right.
I actually saw the Heartbreakers when Richard Hell was in the band about 6 times. They
Oh,
were my
wow.
favorite for a while.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
so what was when was the first time you saw the New York Dolls? Was Max's?
73, yeah.
And it was just after this album came out.
Yeah, yeah. Like
So,
probably within a couple months, so
okay. How did you
yeah.
hear about this album?
I didn't hear about it. I just saw it. And
Oh yeah.
I was just like I said, it's just that cover sucked me right in. It's still one of my favorite album covers.
Sure.
Um, so, and it's so funny because when you read books about the Dolls and stuff, they're always, somebody's always writing like, you know, that record cover killed their career. They
Right.
couldn't play outside New York City looking like that.
Right. Which wasn't true. I mean, like they were even traveling across to the UK, you know? I mean, like they still did shows. It
Well,
was hard.
they went to the UK before the album. That's
Right.
where their first drummer died,
Right.
and yeah, things were starting to happen. But then they went to London, and Billy Mercia died at like 21,
Right.
and that kind of kind of cast a weird spell on them, and then of course, the drugs and alcohol, they didn't have the best reputation, but they still
Yeah.
got out 2 great albums.
Right.
And yeah, they went to LA. There's all that great Bob Gruen footage on all those DVDs, and
Right, right. Well, I mean, the way I understand it, and like from what I've learned doing some of the research, was that the that homosexuality was illegal at this point, and therefore, like them kind of doing the cross dressing thing, kind of labeled them as possibly being homosexual, and therefore, a lot of people, especially people in the music industry, were like directly telling other people, it's like, do not get involved with this band because it could
right.
potentially be illegal.
Well, and they weren't gay. They were all
No, right?
very macho, actually.
Very straight.
And yeah, because of that, you know, they would talk about how, like, all the women would be up in front of the stage, and their boyfriends would be like having a fight in the back. And you
Right.
know, I love this. There was a big interview with Jerry Nolan before he died in the Village Voice, and he told this one story about how when they were out in LA, and he was sharing a hotel room with David Johansen, and they were both like, banging a different girl, and their song came on the radio, and they just like looked over, like it gave a high five or whatever.
I think they call that the Eiffel Tower. Oh man, that's amazing. Well, I mean, so the thing I heard the most about the New York Dolls debut album, the fact about it coming out in 1993, there seemed to be like this musical.
73.
I'm sorry, 73. I'm tripping over my words tonight. There seemed to be a musical cultural desert, kind of like supposedly there was no good, exciting music out there at the time, while pop music and metal seemed to be like dominating popular popular radio, right? It,
Yeah. And also like in their wake when other bands, because I don't know, like I just love the New York Dolls. And then, soon there was, and not that long after there was Kiss, and
hmm,
wasn't into that, and Queen, it wasn't, it's just like, to me, the New York Dolls were like the real deal because they were just like gritty New York.
sure, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and Kiss, like they kind of deliberate, like directly were influenced by the Dolls. I mean, they did actually see the Dolls play, and obviously kind of took
Well,
influence from them.
Jerry Nolan gave Peter Criss drum lessons.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there was a direct connection to those guys.
Yeah, totally.
So I mean, how does it feel for you to have been like a fan of someone like the Dolls, who obviously at this point in our life we see that we see the history and how important it became. But I mean, to know, or did you know that like Kiss kind of like directly pulled from them?
Yeah, I just wasn't buying it because the dolls just like even though they were dressed up, and of course like the album cover they were had t tons of makeup on and stuff, and they never really looked like that. That was just for the
Yeah.
record cover, but yeah, I mean I don't know. I just like I just wasn't for some reason I just wasn't into Kiss.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
know a
that's
lot of
fine.
people now that, all my friends in Red Cross or, Ronnie from the Muffs and stuff, they're just like always going on about Kiss, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it seems
Didn't
that
do it for
you
me.
got in early and kind of like became infected by the New York Dolls, as opposed to, your friends that you're talking about who
Yeah.
became infected by Kiss. I mean, it's a generational thing. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
people that I talk to that, if they were of that generation, Kiss was their band. But if not,
True.
it was
Yeah.
probably either the Beatles or the Stones
And
or
I'm not saying that they weren't into the dolls also, but I'm just saying like
right.
I don't know, I just didn't Kiss didn't do it for me.
Right. No,
Mm.
they didn't. Me too. That
Yeah.
I skipped the generation. I missed it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of an interesting thing that I was thinking about. I mean, like, what do you think is the difference between like influence and mimicking?
Whew. You mean originality and mimicking?
Yeah, I mean, you can take it any way you like it, but I mean, there's something that's obviously like as a musician yourself, like you went on to become in bands, and even though it wasn't something that was like, at the forefront of your mind and that you were trying to actively pursue, but I mean,
Yeah.
now that you make music, you know, all the music that you consume, because you are a huge fan of music, from what I understand. I mean, you seem to be
Yeah.
like, avid collector and so forth. So all of the influences that come into you and that shape what you end up making. I mean, like where's the weird line where it's just like, this is what I make because I know of all of these things, and where some people might be like, I want to make something just like that.
Well, that wasn't really the way it happened for me. I mean, yeah, obviously, I liked Sonic Youth when their first record came out,
Hmm.
and that drew me to them because I was like, you know, even though I grew up in New Jersey, I worked in New York all the time, and I lived there from in 1978 till 1981, and it's just like. It was even like with the CBGB's bands. Some bands just like stood out as being unique, and for every one of them, there was 20 other bands that
Right.
came and went. Yeah.
That's right.
But I just I don't know. I have good taste. What can I
Right,
say?
right. Well, so with that being said, I mean, like, especially because you've been able to see a lot of these bands that kind of like were starting out, that went on to become these massively influential bands. I mean, like, was there some point when you started your musical career that you were like, I want to be someone as important as that, or like did it not even cross
No,
your
that
mind?
wasn't, that was the farthest thing from my mind because I did, that during that whole period, the thought of actually being a drummer in a band wasn't anywhere close to because I was seeing all these great drummers, like Clem Burke and Jerry Nolan and
Hmm.
JD Daugherty and, all these amazing drummers. And so it wasn't until the no wave movement, when I was working as a silkscreen printer in Soho, and I saw the No New York album, compilation album that Brian Eno and came out in 1978. And that's what kind of convinced me that, you don't have to be technical, have all this technical talent to create something unique and original. And so, when I moved to Hoboken in 1981, um, I was just at a bar seeing some friends' bands with my girlfriend, who became my wife after that. But
Hmm.
she, one of the bands like didn't show up, and they said, "Hey, is there a drummer in the house?" And Linda was just like, "Yeah, Bob is." And I got up on stage and started playing with a couple other guys, which turned into my first band. And and that lasted around, and I just never stopped because I enjoyed the social outlet, and I was just trying to be a fine artist before that, and
Right.
all of a sudden, you have people coming up to you like, "Hey, I saw you last night," and blah blah blah. This is like, and I just,
Yeah.
I got into it. It was more fun, more social,
Right.
and when I moved to Hoboken in 1981, I lived a block away from Maxwell's, which was the greatest rock club in the world, and
Oh yeah.
every band in the world played there. It's just like, you're like, oh, should I watch TV tonight or walk down the street and see this new band REM? You know,
Right.
So it was just kind of like, I pretty much spent half my life in that place. I knew about Sonic Youth, and so after the first band fell apart, and I knew about Sonic Youth because there was an article in the New York Rocker about how the composer Glenn Branca was starting a record label, and his first release was going to be this band, Sonic Youth.
Hmm.
So when I saw their record in the store, I bought it. I liked it a lot. I went to see them play a few times with Richard Edson on drums at the Mud Club and CBGB's. And then, one day I went into that same record store where I bought the record, and there was a flyer on the wall that said Sonic Youth needs a drummer. And I took down the flyer and called them up, and started playing with them. And I just learned in recent times reading Thurston's book that I was actually the only person that called them up.
That's cool. It
Yeah,
doesn't help you took that flyer down, didn't you?
I still have it.
There you go. Well, I mean
Yeah.
that was one less possibility,
Well, they hung them all over downtown, but yeah.
Sure. So it's interesting what you were saying about like, kind of starting your first band kind of accidentally, you saw this band and they kind of, your wife, who became your wife kind of forced you to get it up there and do it and you never stopped. But I mean, like, so do you feel like there was like, you obviously saw uh, social aspect of being a musician and being up on stage, but I mean, was it interesting for you to think like about how you were such a fan and going to see all these shows, and now it's just like the tables flipped, and now you are the performer?
Yeah, there was that, but it wasn't, I mean, it's not like people really knew who Sonic Youth were at the time,
Right.
we paid our dues. We did a lot of shows to like five people, and
Yeah.
it's
Right.
and you can't predict the future. Like it still to this day blows my mind that people are still talking about this band, and Bad Moon Rising was the very first full album I ever played on. And it's never been out of print, and people still come up to me all the time, say, "Oh, that's my favorite Sonic Youth record," or "This
Right.
changed my life," when I took acid and listened to this record, and blah blah blah. And so, you know, so it's like, who knew?
Right. Right. Yeah. But to speak to what you're saying, I mean, that'll happen with any album if you're doing acid to it. I mean, like, it just matters which one you choose.
Not true.
But and again, to speak to what you're saying too, I mean, like, so interestingly, there is like this similarity between your career and what I know about the New York Dolls, because like I've done a lot of research on you, and I know that you've mentioned how you could never have imagined the popularity Sonic Youth or even Pussy Galore would go on to have, right? This
Yeah.
like this legacy, and the Dolls were the same, where they eventually were asked by Morrissey of all people to do a reunion show. And as fans of theirs at the time of the release of this record, I mean, like, what was your perspective of them, like in '73? Because, like, I mean, they didn't have this legacy up until recent times. So,
Right. And I was working for a music instrument rental, van rental place, and I actually drove the reformed New York Dolls to the to their Little Stevens thing on Randall's Island,
oh
and
wow,
so that was kind of weird. I drove them to their sound check the night before, and I ended up, smoking a joint in the van with Sylvain and Bob Gruen.
whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, here I was, it's like, I don't know, what was it, 2004 or something. And I'm standing in this muddy field watching the New York Dolls sound check. And I'm, calling my friends, like, hey, check this out,
Yeah, that's so cool. Because like you knew who they were, but and then they had just recently reunited at that time.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
And it was only, even at that point, Arthur Kane was already gone. So it was just Sylvain and
Oh, okay.
Johansson and,
Right.
Steve Conti and all those other guys.
Right. Oh, that's sad. I mean, you missed them. Did you ever get to a chance to meet them at least when in their heyday, like in '73 or around that time?
No, no, I was just a 73. I was what, 17 or something. Yeah, I was just a kid, just going to
Right.
clubs.
Yeah, but just I mean, hanging out, especially in those places. I mean, Max's, from what I understand, it was not like a huge club or anything. I mean, it was
No, it was a very small club, but
right.
it was,
The intimacy factor. I mean, there may have been a possibility where you could have actually crossed paths with these
yeah,
people.
I wasn't like I wasn't, I was shy and I wouldn't approach them, And then
Uh,
even later going to CBGB's, I remember one time I was down in the bathroom and, you know, and then, but I looked up to all these people. To me, they were like these rock gods,
right.
and I just remember, going into the bathroom one night and Ivan Julian from the Voidoids was down there,
Oh,
and he pulls up half a pint of rum out of his pocket, and he's like, he offered it to me, and I said no thanks, and he starts pouring it into a cup of soda, and he's just like, who can afford drinks in this place? This is 1976,
yeah.
CBGB's, what was it, $2?
Right. Right. I talked to Ivan Julian actually on this show. It was great.
He's awesome. I've had the pleasure of meeting him and actually playing with him a little bit,
Yeah. Cool,
in
man. Yeah.
modern times.
That's great. Yeah. So again about this thing, I mean, like you were just saying a little bit about it. Like as a fan of the Dolls at the time of the release of this record, I mean, what was your perspective of them? You were saying that you thought they were rock stars.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't, it was just you would just go see bands, and it wasn't like, this was like, oh, the Dolls are playing, let's go see them, And I
Right.
saw them like one time at like a dinner theater in New Jersey or somewhere. I saw them at Club 82. I saw the about five or six times in different places.
So you
But
wouldn't think like like at the time you weren't thinking that they were a famous band, or you did.
no, well, I was just going out, and
Right.
they just happened to be a band I like that was easy to see.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, did it seem like they would go on to greatness?
No, I didn't. You didn't. We didn't think about things like that back then. But no, because they weren't anywhere near like the mainstream crap you were hearing on the radio.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like it's the same like with the Velvet Underground. It's just it's just like they didn't sell any records when they were together.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I have this interesting thing I'd like to ask you about because I heard you speaking about going to see the Ramones for the first time when they were just starting out, and you said that you weren't very impressed by them.
The first time I saw them, I just thought they sounded like David Peel being backed by a rock band, and it must have been pretty early on it. But then, once their first album came out, and I heard that, and then I started going to see them again, and yeah, and then all of a sudden they were the greatest thing in the world.
Right. I mean, I think that like you went on to say that like a friend of yours put the record on for you again at some other later time, and then it finally clicked, and you got really excited, and then you wanted to go see them again.
Right.
So,
And
I
I saw
mean,
them a bunch of times. Um, One time I saw them, and there was an opening band, and I never heard of them before, called the Cramps. You know, and it was just like, oh, what a good name, and it was like, oh my God, and
right.
that they had Miriam Lena on drums. It was like right at the beginning, and so
Wow.
you know,
Amazing.
yeah,
I mean, but so do you think that there's a certain magic that comes through a recording that might influence the way someone sees a band or like anticipates the excitement for a fan, like when they finally get to go see that band?
absolutely. If sometimes you could see a band and not be that impressed, but then you hear their record and the songs grow on you when you go back, and it's a whole other experience.
Or it could be the opposite. You see the
Yeah,
band,
it
you're
could be the
super
opposite
excited.
too.
You go to the store, you pick it up, and you're like, this record sucks.
Yeah, or this record's great, but they suck live.
Right, right. And so that can just change. I mean, depending on
Yeah,
how
sure,
much time you put into it,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting. All right. So, I mean, we should probably start talking about this album. I'm actually gonna try to do a little bit of a track by track with you.
okay.
Um, so now, referring again back to the New York Dolls and their debut album, which is self-titled. So by this time, this album is ingrained in your DNA. I mean, you were able to see them often, and so I'm sure you picked up the record obviously prior to seeing them. What you said, right?
Yes.
And but now you know the album. It's been so many years now. You still listen to it, I'm sure, with some regularity.
Yep.
Is there anything about it that sticks out to you that you feel like you only finally noticed, or like it just took you forever to grasp it?
No, I mean, the very first listen didn't knock me out because they were kind of like the Rolling Stones in a way, but they were
Hmm.
much more grittier. And but then, I mean, now you listen to it, it's like every song, from Personality Crisis to Trash to, Jet Boy. I really love the one song that Arthur Kane wrote, Private World.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
That's a
got
good
that
one.
cowbell.
Yeah, I like that song too. Um,
And the
let's see.
second album I love too.
I never really got into that one. I really got to give
Yeah,
that
it's a
a
lot. There's more covers on it. But that's a great album. It's not as maybe not as great as the first one, but it's great too.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's like it's kind of like been shrouded by the first album.
Hmm.
Um, but so maybe before we start talking about the album, there's one more question I'd like to ask you
Sure.
because you were able to see the Dolls at Max's in '73 and a bunch of other times. But I mean, Max's is such like an iconic place. It's like just that scene and culture historically is like such a landmark thing. I mean, could you describe like what that day would be like, or that like a typical day of like kind of going into Max's in the city to see a show?
Well, for one thing, if you had a car, it was so easy to cruise in. The Lincoln Tunnel was only like $1, and you could park right in front of Max's practically, and it was always like CB's bands and Max's bands, and a lot of them crossed over to both places. And there was two different atmospheres completely because Max has had like these rows of tables in front of the stage, which, on a rowdy night, like I remember seeing the Heartbreakers there, and like we would just like take the tables and throw them around, and seeing the contortions there, and James
Wow,
Chance would come out and start slapping people around. Um,
wow.
but yeah, it was a totally, totally different vibe. And you had upstairs and downstairs. Downstairs was the restaurant and the famous back room where, the whole Warhol crowd hung out, or in the earlier days.
Hmm.
But yeah, he's and then Max's was also where you saw the bands. You had to go up, flight of stairs and stuff like that. But I just it was a good vibe, and I just remember one time I was there and I saw Cheetah Chrome walking out of the bathroom with a drink in each hand. And I don't know what he did, but some girl just like slugged him and he just like totally went down and like slid into the ladies' room.
Wow. Yeah, it was a wild times back then.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West. All right. Well, then, so let's go ahead and try to get into this album, and we'll go down the list and talk a little bit about each song. So,
Okay.
first song is "Personality Crisis." Um, great
Oh, we're
song.
talking about the New York Dolls album.
The New York Dolls. Yes.
Okay. I thought you were talking about my album.
Oh no, we'll definitely talk about that though because
Okay.
that's definitely one of the things I wanted to mention. But yeah, personality crisis. I mean, super simple question right off the bat. So the title, personality crisis. Let's look at it as at two different times in your life, right? So as a young person, let's say prior to hearing the Dolls, would you say you ever had a personality crisis?
No, I'm a pretty stable person.
Yeah. You said you were
Yeah.
shy though.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I had a personality crisis.
No, no. I mean, yeah, you were very
No,
assertive. You
but
kind
I
of
was when you're in your late teens and early 20s, it's just like, I wasn't shy, but I wasn't into back then. I wouldn't like, if I saw a famous person, I wouldn't approach them.
right. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple of reasons for that. I feel like sometimes you just don't feel like you want to intrude. You want to give them their kind of personal space.
Right. And sometimes they say don't meet your heroes. Is
Sure.
yeah.
You've had a lot of good fortune in that regard, though, haven't you? You've met a lot
Yeah.
of people you've loved.
Yeah. Lydia Lunch being the main one.
Right. Yeah, and look at that. I mean, you got to play with her on tour with her band, her
Yeah, and I've
Retrovirus.
been close friends with her for 40 years.
Amazing. Wow. Well, sometimes it works out great then.
Yeah.
So then, like, maybe the second half of your life. I mean, like, the second half of your life, I would say that was probably when you were, best known as a musician. You're playing around with a lot of
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever feel like you didn't know who you were when you were in any of those bands?
I didn't know who I was. No, I mean, I was just trying to improve my drumming and, I went with the flow and, Sonic Youth, I mean, we hung out together all the time and went to dinner parties and, there was no identity crisis or anything like that,
Right.
you know.
Well,
I
a
mean,
lot of
when I joined Pussy Galore, it was a little different because they were 10 years younger and coming
mm,
from a whole other place.
right.
So that was a kind of a weird adjustment. But yeah, no,
You've always been very sure of yourself.
I wouldn't say I've been very, very sure of myself. Always been pretty modest, you know.
Right.
Like to this day, people will come up and say, "Oh, you're a great drummer," and I'm just like, when I look at any other drummer, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm so great.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, like, who would you say are like your biggest influences on the way you drum?
Well, one time I was playing in a band called the Knoxville Girls, and Kid Congo Powers was in the band, and we were playing at the Bowery Ballroom. And I didn't hear him say this, but Kid related to me. But Thurston Moore went backstage and he said to Kid, he said, "Boy, Bob's really great. He's like the no wave Clem Burke." And I thought that was like the ultimate compliment because I always wanted to kind of combine, like being a rock drummer. So I was influenced by the whole no wave thing, but then the whole post-punk thing with all these, like Depop and Hugo from the Gang of Four, like all
Mm,
that really tight, solid,
yeah.
steady beats, and that was also a big influence on me. So, I didn't really have that much of a like concept. At one point, just a stupid thing in my brain, I was just like, yeah, I'd like to combine the rock of Jerry Nolan with the tribalness of Ikawe Mori of DNA and,
Hmm.
kind of come up with my own thing. And, and I I think I've kind of developed my own style just because I wasn't that skilled and I wasn't like 90% of all the other drummers that are just like they play every day and ever since they were a teenager, blah 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 blah, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then how about like when you joined Pussy Galore? I mean, like you obviously had to try to play a different kind of kit. I mean, guess it was at John's suggestion to kind of incorporate
Well,
the
yeah,
gas
so
can.
when I first joined Pussy Galore, the very first rehearsal, I was playing a normal drum set, and they had another guy playing metal percussion,
Hmm.
and John wanted to combine the two, so we went to a junkyard and we comprised this whole kit where I had a metal rod in one hand and a drumstick in the other. So I had a gas tank on top of the bass drum with a big car suspension spring. The snare drum was two metal plates wired together on a snare drum shell. And
Hmm.
then later, when we were recording with Steve Albini, he contributed a cock ring, which we put on top, which gave it a good rattle. And then on the other hand, I had a floor tom and a snare. And so it was kind of tricky. I was,
Yeah.
you know, doing cymbals with this drumstick and hitting the metal snare with the metal rod.
Right. Right. I mean, but do you think that influenced a little bit of your kind of progression moving forward as a drummer because maybe you might want to incorporate different types of percussion?
Um, Possibly because, I was very influenced by Einstein's Neubauten, who,
Hmm.
I just when one time I was in Europe early on with Sonic Youth and someone showed us a videotape of them and it really blew my mind and I loved it and still a big fan. And then we went to Berlin to play and they were there at the show and we hung out with them and went into the recording studio while they were recording. And so yeah, the anything with metal percussion, you got to give a lot of credit to them.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. I'm not a drummer, but I mean, I definitely love the idea of like beating on things and kind of like getting different sounds out of them and
Yeah.
incorporating that into any type of music, really. So that's cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the next song, "Looking for a Kiss." Uh,
Uh, when I say I'm in love, you best believe I'm in love, L-U-V.
LUV. You betcha.
Yeah, Uh, you know, I don't know what you want. Analyzing each song on the New York Dolls record. I don't know. So let's just like sum it up. It's a great album. All the songs are good.
No, I know that. I know that. And trust me, I was actually going to get to this a little later, but I mean, I do hate analyzing music. I really do.
Yeah.
But there's I like to find some little interesting tidbits about it and try to relate that to your own career. You sometimes, if it's possible, you know. But yeah, I don't know. This song is a little strange. I mean, like and the other thing too is right. So you always have to like look at a song based on its lyrics
Yeah.
because that's what's telling you the story. I mean, like listening to music that's instrumental, let's say, is different because it's like completely up to interpretation. You get to kind of like make anything you
Yeah.
want out of it. But when a song has lyrics, it's like, well, now it's telling you a story, and now
Well, all
that's
the lyrics on that album have that's kind of, like the was it personality crisis? Like everyone's going to shoot up in your room. They're all obsessed with gloom, things.
right.
So everything was kind of like, punk rock before punk rock.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. But I mean, I guess like with that being said, a lot of the lyrical content of this album is essentially sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean,
Sure.
that's the bottom line to it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And that's what
but
destroyed them.
right, right, the sex, right, the sex
The
did it.
drugs. Maybe the sex, I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of both, yeah. But I mean, like, so this album around the time of the release of this album, you were going out a lot. I mean, and you were telling me a little bit about the scene and kind of like you going out to these shows. But I mean, would you say you were looking for a kiss or a fix at the time?
Definitely a kiss.
Yeah,
Luckily, that's why I'm still here talking to you, as I totally avoided heroin.
yeah, yeah, right. But you did
Yeah.
experiment, which is kind of cool. I mean, like and very very young at that. You're telling me like when you were 14, you were
Yeah, but I was
experimenting.
also aware that, and even though, I looked up to people like Johnny Thunders and Keith Richards and William Burroughs, I just knew that,
It's dangerous.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea of addiction. And also growing up working in my father's liquor stores, just seeing the same people come in at the same time every day, buying their half gallon of vodka and cigarettes. It's just like
Right.
I never, you know, I'm not a big fan of drunk people, and I never got into drinking.
Hmm.
I was always like a pothead more or less. But
Sure.
so luckily, I didn't get into anything that would destroy my life.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a sobering thing to kind of like see the drinkers showing up at the liquor store when they open at like what 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing kind of more sad than that, really. All right, well let's move on to the next song, Vietnamese Baby.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's kind of a weird one.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean it's definitely an outlier on the album because it's a little bit politically tinged, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of acoustic. Um, yeah, it kind of gives the album a little texture,
Hmm.
whereas, like a lot of records like, you know, are just like one vibe through the whole thing musically.
Right.
And and then then there's songs like, all right, what's the next song? Vietnamese Baby. And what's next?
The one after that one, Lonely Planet Boy. I think that's the one you're talking about because Lonely
Oh, that's
Planet
the one
Boy
I'm
is the
thinking of.
acoustic
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Vietnamese Baby is kind of different also.
Right. And lyrically dark. It's kind of like I don't know if it's very straightforward, but it is kind of dark. Obviously, it has to deal with like Vietnam, and it puts things in a different perspective because like I've actually talked about this record before on this show with another band, like
Oh,
this young band called Killer Kin from Connecticut.
Killer
Uh,
Kane.
Killer Kin.
Okay.
Yes, influenced by Killer Kane for sure. But that's probably why they wanted to talk about this record. And so, speaking with them, they're very young people. I mean, they're even younger than I am. So, I mean, speaking with you today, it's a little bit different. It puts me in this mindset of like, thinking about this album coming out in 73, and it's just like, the Vietnam conflict was still going on, and like you kind of like just narrowly like dodged the draft, right?
Yeah, very narrowly. And yeah, thank God. Because there's no way I would have gone to Vietnam.
Right. I mean, what would you have done, and what did you do to avoid it?
I didn't do anything to avoid it. I was just lucky with timing. It's funny because my good friend Mark C. from Live Skull,
Oh,
he
right.
was born a week after me, and he told me that he got a lottery number. I don't remember getting a lottery number.
Oh,
So, you know,
so
but
he
it's
missed
so
it.
funny because you read like a lot of books. I read a lot of books about artists and musicians, and like so many people, that like Wayne Kramer and Duncan Hannah, and they like did all the weird shit, like didn't eat for a week, took acid, smeared shit on their body, whatever they had to do,
Right.
made believe they were gay or whatnot, and but I don't know, I probably would have just gone to Canada. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you missed it.
Yeah, well, me too.
Very thankfully. So moving on to the next song, "Lonely Planet Boy." Um, Interesting little fact I found in Far Out magazine about Morrissey's admiration for the Dolls. It said, "quote There is a light." I'm sorry. The title of the song, "There is a light that never goes out," the penultimate track from the 1986 Smiths record, "The Queen is Dead,"
Uh-huh.
is most commonly associated with the 1955 film Rebel Without a Cause, but at a close analysis of the lyrics finds more direct parallels with the New York Dolls' Lonely Planet Boy.
Huh.
Yeah, are you a fan of the Smiths?
No.
Okay, me neither. I really can't stand them at all.
Or Morrissey.
Yeah, especially these days, he seems very
To
kind of
me, the coolest
problematic.
thing Morrissey ever did was, have the New York Dolls fan club when he was a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, he was like this really weird, like very young and like kind of motivated fan. I mean, like he was he created the New York Dolls fan club, but I feel like I can't remember specifically, but there was a bunch of other like kind of notable bands or bands that went on to like have these kind of like legacy careers that he kind of like championed early on.
Yeah.
Like he was just always into it. Was it the Monks? No, I can't remember who it is now. But whatever. So he's got good
Yeah.
taste, I guess. Despite what he does himself. So yeah, so that's interesting then. I mean, obviously you don't know that song, but there's some lyrical connection there where it seems like he's kind of pulling some content from it.
Okay.
You'll have to go and listen to it even though you don't want to.
Okay.
But and so now from that same article, there was mention about Morrissey. He goes on to say, quote, Johansson was then such a great stylist and a brilliant lyricist, which is never considered in assessments of the Dolls, but if you listen to Frankenstein, which is the next song we're going to talk about, with all its unnatural rhymes and uncontrolled vocal leaps, it's incredibly cinematic and clever, and also very intimidating, end quote. Which is true. I mean, like, what do you think about this song, Frankenstein?
That's actually one of my least favorite songs on the album.
Really?
And
Okay.
one time it was New Year's Eve, and I went to see the New York Dolls at the Beacon Theater, but this was after Johnny and Jerry left, and it was Johansson and Sylvain and Tony Machine on drums, and I forget who else, but you know, and it wasn't very good. The whole show wasn't very good. And when they did Frankenstein, they had a guy come out on stage with a big Frankenstein head. And
Oh,
I
geez.
don't know, it was just kind of dumb at that point.
Yeah,
But
corny.
yeah, that if I had to take one song off the record, it would be that one. But everyone loves that song, so so many
Really?
people. Yeah, well, you're
Okay.
saying Morrissey's going on about it, but a lot of people, you know, probably think that's one of the best songs on the album. But that didn't
Yeah.
grab me. Yeah.
Okay. I've actually heard the contrary. I've actually heard I was listening to some podcast about this album, trying to get some information from it, and this group of guys was talking about it. I don't know, it was like four guys on a show, and all of them kind of like really didn't like this song, and they also agreed that they would probably remove this song from the album. It's certainly the longest. It's what is
Yeah,
it, 6 minutes?
yeah.
How long is it? Yeah, it says 6 minutes exactly. So it is a little weird. But I did, listening to it again so closely to get ready to speak with you about this. I mean, like, I was listening to it again, and like, it did kind of hit me because I had a real hard time trying to like figure out what this song was about. Like when I was talking with that other band like years ago. But now I heard it a little bit more clearly, and that's kind of why I was asking you earlier. Is there something that's kind of like hit you about this record that you didn't notice before? Because
Huh.
like lyrically speaking, I mean, like it's a kind of a complex song, and I feel like I think David like uses like Frankenstein as more of like a metaphor, but I don't know if he's describing like his own experience in New York, or if he's describing somebody who is like a transplant into the city.
Huh. I don't know.
Huh.
I'll have to re-examine it.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't.
Uh,
You obviously don't seem to like not necessarily want to pick apart music like that, but I
yeah,
mean, it is interesting like when you kind of like dive into these things and try to like figure it out better.
right.
But that's up to you if you want to
Yeah.
or not.
Well, that's why, when you ask a lot of songwriters about their songs, they always say, it's up for you to interpret it your own way.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. Um, there is no right or wrong answer, but I did notice something different about it this time around, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um, so next song, Trash.
Trash, love it.
Yeah,
Gotta pick it up.
yeah. I love that song. It's great. Um, I feel like this is a little commentary on the filth of the city at the time because back then, like late '60s, early '70s in New York City. I mean, it was kind of a dump, right?
Yeah, it was a totally different world. Drugs and bums everywhere. The city was poor. The East Village was all burnt out buildings and abandoned cars. And if you walked past Avenue A, you were taking your life in your hands.
Right, right. You never lived in the city though.
No, but I spent a lot of time there. I mean, Sonic Youth rehearsed there, Pussy Galore rehearsed there,
Right.
and I worked there, so it's like, people don't realize that Hoboken is right across the river,
Hmm.
and I can get to New York faster than a lot of people from Brooklyn.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
And so, but you would make that trip so often. I mean, and so you were seeing a lot of what all of that was about, possibly.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Next song, "Bad Girl."
Bad girl. Yeah,
Again,
who
it's just
doesn't like a new bad girl moving in on your block,
well, again, like I mean, this is that time in when I was writing out this conversation where I didn't want to analyze it because it was like it kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah,
It's just like how do you analyze a song about a bad girl?
right.
It's
Or a
like
subway train or a jet boy or
right, right, but but it's like a hard up guy pleading for some love. Super raunchy, rocking guitar work. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
It does make me think though about your new record because I'm gonna get the name wrong. I'm sorry. Beach Bongo Bloodbath, right?
Bloodbath. Yeah,
No guitars on that album.
that's right.
So like when I had heard it, I wasn't thinking about that. I didn't read the bio. I just put the music on because that's what I like to do. I just
Right.
like to listen to it right away. But I mean, like some of the songs, like what it's not quite half. There's like 5 or 6 covers on that album.
There's 8 covers on that
8
album.
covers. Okay. So, and like from what I like, it's like what I realized when I was listening to it, I was just like, these covers are like fairly heavy guitar songs, like they're originals.
Yeah,
But you're not using a guitar. I mean, so like the synth is the primary kind of like
and that came in later. This is how it happened. I spent like from 2012 until early 2023, I was touring the world and recording records with Lydia Lunch Retrovirus. And then after that, John Spencer and the Hitmakers. And then both of those things came to an end around the same time. And so, and all of a sudden, those came to an end, and I had to stay home anyway because my girlfriend had some health issues. So I became a caregiver for her. And then, so someone asked me to do a solo performance. So I made this weird, crazy percussion setup, and I did about 4 shows as a solo performer. And so all the songs on the record were songs that I liked, but there were also songs that I could play and sing at the same time. So, and that's how the basic track started out. And then I just thought like, hey, I have access to a recording studio, rehearsal space that I share with Mark C from Live Skull, where as soon as I get done with this interview, I have to go there because I'm playing a show with Live Skull next week.
oh, nice.
And so, um, and it wasn't like this thought out, like, oh, I'm making a solo record. I laid down the basic tracks, and then I would take them home and listen to them for like a month and say, oh, this needs this and this needs that. And then I'd go back and, I didn't even know I was making an album at the time. I was just having fun and getting
Hmm.
this stuff down on tape. And then eventually it came together and I said, okay, this is an album. And, I presented it to Bar None Records, whose offices are in the same building as our rehearsal recording studio.
Oh, that's
And
convenient.
they really dug it. And now here I am doing interviews every day.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's such a drag, man, to have to promote these things. Hey, and speaking of Mark C, I actually had Mark C on this show. Actually, quite a few years ago now.
Okay.
I love that guy. He was great. It's great to
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
to him.
He's like my best friend.
Yeah, I think I was talking to him in the studio actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um, so that's cool. So he did the production work for you.
Well, we did it together. Yeah, he's the one that owns all the equipment and most of the instruments there. So
Right.
yeah, he's become quite an engineer. I had this band called the Wolf Manhattan Project with Kid Congo and Mick Collins,
Hmm.
and we recorded our second album there. And then Mark's been recording all the latest Live Skull records there.
Right.
It's a great little comfortable space, and it's very easy to work with. We've done a lot of things together, so it kind of came together.
Right. That's great. All right. Well, then let's just keep on moving along. Subway Train. And this is an interesting thing to talk about now that we're kind of mentioning your album and the production work and Mark C, because I have to admit that the thing that grabs me most about this song is the production technique on the guitar. You know,
Yeah,
like getting that howl just right of like to like it mimics like the subway horn.
right, right. Yeah, is that Johnny Thunders or Sylvain? It's probably Thunders, right?
I assume so. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's Johnny Thunders because Sylvain played more of a rhythm. But yeah, and that song is also on Johnny's solo album, right? So Alone.
Oh,
I think
was
it has
it?
a different title, yeah. But yeah, Subway Train's great because that's just, it doesn't get any more New York City than that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then of course like just that technique is really great and like, I credit Todd Rundgren for it. I assume that he had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Um so I'd like to ask you that like of all the producers and engineers you've worked with over your long career, who would you say was the most experimental or who gave you the best results?
Steve Albini.
Oh
Um,
wow.
because he worked closely with John, and with John with the Pussy Galore records, there was a lot of weird things going on. Like we'd be like, we want to throw this garbage can down the fire escape, and Steve would know exactly how to mic it.
Wow.
But every engineer I worked with was great. Warren Tears was the first one I ever worked with. He was great. He did a bunch of records I'm on. And then, Bad Moon Rising was Martin Bisi's.
Right.
And I just saw him the other night. He's still got the studio going.
Yeah.
And Kramer was good. And that's pretty much it. I mean, who else have I worked with? I can't even think right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, did a lot of records with Wharton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I mean so Steve you would credit as like kind of like just the best one that you worked with at least.
Well, yeah, because he had his thing, and especially drums.
Oh
Like
right.
he produced the second Bewitched album, and one of the reasons I wanted him is because I was in love with the sound of the Jesus Lizard Goat record.
Okay.
The drums are just so amazing. The whole album is so amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because he just had a lot of great ideas. I remember him like, when I wanted a good drum sound with the Bewitched album, he would have me buy these really thin heads, and he would go around with a cigarette lighter and do all this weird stuff, and he knew exactly where to place like drums in a room.
Yeah.
He was definitely the most adventurous and interesting.
Yeah, and got the best results, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Yeah, especially drums. I mean, he's known for that. He's known for like his drum sounds, like on all the
yeah,
records he's
sure.
done.
And
It's great. Okay, that's cool, man. Moving on to pills. So
Pills,
this,
well, that's a Bo Diddley song.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's cover.
Yeah. So and they do a great version of it. I believe I heard the New York Dolls version probably before I heard Bo Diddley's version. And yeah, I like that pills.
Yeah,
Nothing like a rock and roll nurse going to your head, man.
yeah, man. I would agree. I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that song, but yes, except to note that it was actually written by Bo Diddley.
Yep.
So then the next song being "Private World," which
I
you
love
are
that song.
right.
Killer riff. I love the whole sentiment. I need a private world, and like I said, that's the only song in the album written by Arthur Kane.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, that's up there in my top three favorite songs on the album.
Okay. Cool. The only thing I have to ask about this song is like again referring back to the words or the title of the song. I mean, "Private World." I mean, it essentially deals with like privacy, right? So kind of
Yeah,
not having enough. I mean, as a celebrity type person, I mean, you're in a spotlight constantly, kind of whatever limelight, whatever you want to call it.
yeah. Well,
Um, so how do you deal with that, like being a personal person?
I don't consider myself a celebrity.
No, I know
Uh,
that.
uh, yeah, I mean, and that was never anything I strived for, so it worked out well. Like I always wanted to be a more of a underground if I was going to be known for anything, and I mean, I get approached by people, but I find it flattering. If anyone knows who I am, then more power to
Right, right.
you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though because it's like I almost feel like how do people not know you because um, we've already talked about a couple of people that I've had on this show that you've worked with or are friends with and so forth. I mean, Martin Beasy I've had on this show. Alice Janess?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
I remember when I was talking about how I don't know if maybe I wasn't talking about it with you, but there was a period of time when Sonic Youth, like I wasn't in the band, and that's who I was rehearsing with. It was Alice,
right.
Janice, and Karen Cole, and as I went back to Sonic Youth, they came up with the name Gut Bank, and they formed that band. But I was the original drummer with those two. Yeah,
But you never did any shows with them.
never did any shows with them, and just a lot of rehearsing, and but that's what that improved my skills a lot. And I'm still good friends with Alice.
Yeah,
She's Hoboken born and bred. She lives in Asbury Park now, but she was playing with Psychic TV for a long time.
right.
And I had Genesis in the magazine right when they were reuniting, and so I went to see them a bunch of times. And yeah, I love Alice. She's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, she's great. I had a great time talking with her. Mark C, of course. I can't think of anybody else right now at the moment, but yeah, like, just a few people. It was just like all this connection. Weasel Walter, that's the other one from
Oh,
Retrovirus.
yeah.
Yeah, I had him on.
I'm sure he was talkative.
Yeah, he really intimidated me a little bit. I mean, just because I had like this background information from him because he produced that Arabon Raider record that I really loved, and
Uh-huh.
that's kind of the only thing I knew about him at the time. Obviously I had to dive into his catalog and all of the work that he's done, and it's like
Oh,
so much.
yeah.
It's insane. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, the last song on the record is Jet Boy, which
Yeah.
great song.
Great
Um,
song.
Yeah, I really loved seeing it in the documentary about Arthur Kane that came out prior to their or for their reunion.
That's the song that they also did on the Midnight Special.
Right. That's what they cut. They cut in that footage, to make it like kind of like give you
Yeah.
the juxtaposition.
Yeah, Jet
So
Boy is great. That guitar riff is killer and the great that's the closing cut, right, of the album.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they've ruined this album. That they have never released it with like bonus material. I don't think. Right.
No, no.
That's nice.
Yeah. They never did. It's been reissued a bunch of times and in the second album too. And you know, and then there's always been stuff like live stuff and the demos with Billy. And Billy's drumming was very basic. And I mean, Jerry Nolan really took them up a notch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, would you say that you were influenced by Jerry Nolan, like specifically drum wise?
Totally. He's like my favorite rock and roll drummer
Hmm.
because I saw him, with the Dolls. I saw him a bunch of times with the Heartbreakers. And yeah, he's the best.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So then like just moving on to your latest album. I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about other bands you've been in, and obviously you've done so many recordings, so many bands you've been part of. Um, Beach Bongo Bloodbath is being released on June 12th by Bar None,
Right.
in celebration of its 40th anniversary. Bar None Records.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, they've been
Yeah.
around. Like I knew they were around forever. Like what were some of the other albums that came out on Bar None?
Well, their first album the first record they put out was like the first record of They Might Be Giants.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so that sold really well. So they got off to a great start. And they put out a lot of stuff that I'm not familiar with, but they put out, Glenn's bands, and then they put out the Feelies, and
Oh,
they reissued a bunch of Alex Chilton records. And those are the things I take when I go to their office. You know.
yeah.
And but yeah, they put out a lot of stuff that I'm not familiar with.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I knew that name though, and I was just like, yeah, I can't think of why, but I know I probably have a record or two by them
Yeah,
that they put
yeah.
out. So it's also being so Beach Bongo Bloodbath is being released on vinyl and
Yes,
CD.
yes, and streaming.
Cool. Any special packaging for the vinyl that you know of, or?
Well, purple vinyl.
Oh, cool.
Uh, um, yeah, no, it's not a gatefold or anything.
Yep, single pocket, but
Inner
color.
sleeve has all the info and pictures and but yeah, I hope it looks good when it comes out. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
some CDs, but that's it.
Oh, okay. So you doing vinyl pre-orders at this time, or
They will be.
oh,
At
they
some
have?
point it's going to go up. And I just made a video for Love Comes in Spurts.
Nice,
That's still being worked on, but I got Richard Hell to do a cameo.
awesome.
I
Yeah, you're
sent
good
him the song
friends.
and he dug it.
That's cool. Yeah, you're friends with him. You interviewed him for your zine.
Interviewed him for BB Gun like 25 years ago, but Richard Hell. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. By all means,
Richard
clear.
Hell has lived in the same apartment since 1975.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
How wild. And that's in New York, right?
Yeah, on 12th Street.
Wow. All right. It's crazy. So you have a good rapport with him then at this point?
Well, I just hadn't seen him since I interviewed him, and I just wrote him an email. I said, "Hey, I got your email from Thurston. I don't know if you remember me, and like interviewed you, blah blah blah." And he
Hmm.
wrote back, "I couldn't have asked for a nicer response." He was just like he loved my version of the song. He said he remembered me as being a good writer and drummer and whatnot, and then I offered him money, he wouldn't take it. He's cool.
Yeah.
He's very nice. Yeah.
Stand-up guy. All
Yeah.
right.
Who would have thought? The only one living from the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, I know, right? That's tragic, but yeah, but he seems. I guess I don't know. He's a little intimidating too, a little scary, but I guess if you get
Yeah,
to
he
know
could
him,
be, but I mean, some people just have that, like so many people find that about Lydia Lunch. They're like totally afraid of her,
yeah,
but
I
but
am. Yeah,
yeah.
I met her in Providence. She did a
Oh,
show here with Tim Dahl,
okay.
and my friend Eric Paul opened up for her just reading some poetry because she was doing some. It wasn't the retrovirus thing. It was just like this duo. This
Ambient kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, this duet where it was kind of like a spoken word performance with Tim
Yeah.
on bass.
Yep.
It
She's
was
still doing that now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. But yeah, I tried to say hi to her after the show, and like Eric introduced me, and I was just like totally scared.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a hard time. She just looks through you, So I was just like,
Yep.
you see, I'm some kind of faker, and I can't say anything to you.
Yeah.
But that's great. I mean, so I hope everything goes well with the release, man. It's a really great album.
Thank you so
Was
much. I
really
appreciate
enjoying listening to it for the past few nights,
it. Okay.
and best of luck. And you're not doing any touring, right?
No, no.
Okay.
It's too much trouble, and I don't even have the ambition, it's too much work because I have all this stuff to have to set up, and it's just like, you know, I'll probably just do a bunch of little things, hook up with other bands and just whatnot, but I've been touring since 1982, so I don't need to do it, I don't miss it.
Right. Yeah.
And so
And
just gonna
but
enjoy life and work on my photo book and do other stuff.
oh yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, because you're doing a show with Live Skull, you're picking up a show
Yeah,
with them,
yeah.
and that's just going to be a one-off.
Yeah, because their drummer is getting an operation on something. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So you're just going to look out for things like that in the future, just kind of like pick up something here and there.
it happens. I just did a spoken word thing the other night. I'm DJing on Thursday at the Joe's Pub. Yeah, my life's been picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
All
it's
right.
it's nice because, like I said, for the last 3 years, I've been a caregiver for my girlfriend, and now she's in a nursing place. She has dementia at the age of 56.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
56.
yeah,
That's so young.
yeah. No, it's been a nightmare, but
Yeah.
uh, but now I'm, alone and free once again.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
sorry to hear, man. That's
yeah,
that's
that's all
horrible.
right. Thanks.
And plus, because you've already done this. I mean, your previous
My
wife.
second time, man.
Yeah, that's so. Oh man, it's so
I've put my
rough.
life on hold for like over 10 years, both cases.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all right. I don't know how much of a long road this is going to be for you this second time around, but I mean,
Yeah,
I wish you the best, man.
thank you.
Well, it's great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
All
Take
right.
care.
You too, man. Vinyl and Vision is a Psychic Static production. Theme song written and performed by Jeff Robbins of 123 Astronaut.